Joining us now is Anna Gupta, principal at AG Health Advisors. Anna, great to have you with us tonight.
Hey, good evening, Melissa.
We mentioned healthcare overall, but the hospital stocks really took it on the chin today. Molina, Centene, each were off by about 8.5%. You've got three scenarios as to what you think could happen to ACA. It sounds like two would be positive, pro-ACA. Can you sort of go through them?
Yes, so clearly the Affordable Care Act is the most at risk from a healthcare policy perspective. Really hinges on two things. The most obvious thing is, will they fill the vacancy for RBG before the election or during the lame duck? But one should also look at what the potential knock-on implications are, obviously, for sentiment ahead of the election. I think that more likely, of course, it's going to mobilize both sides and very much focus not only on the president, but also on the composition of the Senate at this point. So I think there are three election scenarios. The Democratic sweep or the blue wave post-RBG, I think, is at a much higher probability than before. And then the other two scenarios, Biden as president with divided government, the Senate R majority, House D majority, or the Trump status quo as we have it today, are probably equally impacted. So we have, a scenario on Obamacare where you have the law completely overturned. There was a Texas lower court in 2018 in the end of December that had said that the individual mandate is completely severable from Obamacare. This was heard by a federal circuit court, but they really only punted for a hearing by the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court, with a 6-3 or perhaps a 5-4 majority, could completely overturn the law. On the other hand, a scenario we could have is that they don't replace Justice Ginsburg, or the ACA remains intact from a judicial perspective, but then we do have a Democratic sweep, and then 6 months perhaps down the road, there is a legislative outcome where the law can not only remain intact, but perhaps even be strengthened with subsidies for exchanges, incentives for the red states to expand Medicaid. So we saw this really violent sell-off today for Centene and Molina in the managed care space, and then some of the hospital names. All of those have the most exposure to Obamacare. But if you want to play offense on the latter scenario, on an intact ACA, perhaps even a strengthened ACA, you could actually look at buying on the sell-off. On the other hand, playing defense, you should be looking at United and Humana and maybe the digital health names, which have done very well amid the pandemic and are generally defensive, like Teladoc, Amwell, that just went public.
Hey, it's BK. So I'm curious about the dynamics in the healthcare outside of the ACA. So we know because of the pandemic that a lot of elective surgeries weren't done, and some of these hospitals were actually having some economic issues. And today in the junk bond market, a lot of the pressure was in the healthcare sector. Those spreads widened a bit. So do we need to be worried about kind of a financing or credit issue within the healthcare, and more specifically the hospital stocks?
So we did see a big slowdown, obviously. The margins on the managed care side, which is the flip side of the ledger, if you will, expanded. They had lower medical loss ratios. And we have seen some of that beginning to come back, but not entirely by any means. On the hospital side, the surgery center names, all names generally in the care delivery system, saw weaker volumes. But if you do see, continued slowdown from an economic perspective, or there is a second wave or another lockdown, that should continue to help the payers, if you will, the managed care side. Again, United, Humana, the digital health names. On the other side, if you have, pretty a slowdown on the pandemic, no second lockdown, and a vaccine perhaps, the hospital names could see an accelerated rebound in utilization and volume pickup. So, there's a lot of uncertainty on the hospital side from both the election perspective as well as from the pandemic.
Anna, great to have you. Thanks for phoning in. We appreciate it. Anna Gupta, AG Health Advisors. Offense.